Hey everyone, welcome back to the 2021 Nonfiction Writers Conference. I am Stephanie Chandler, your host. I'm really excited about this session with Marissa Eigenbrood. She's going to be talking about author branding, such a powerful topic. Before we begin, here are your quick guidelines. We are recording this event. Attendees are muted. If you want to ask a question, pop them in the Q&A and I will help facilitate Q&A at the end of this session, this 50-minute session. There are several handouts available for this session, so please hop over to nonfictionwritersconference.com and download those handouts. And let's give a huge thanks to our platinum sponsor. Lulu.com offers self-publishing services, including an integration with Shopify that allows you to set up shopping cart buttons on your website and drop ship your books. Lulu also offers spiral binding, color printing, and they're a great place to order your advanced review copies, which we've been talking about quite a bit. You can save 15% off printing with Lulu with this code NFAA15. And now I'm thrilled to introduce our speaker. Marissa Eigenbrood is Senior Vice President of Smith Publicity, working closely with all teams across the company. Throughout her career in public relations, she's worked with nonprofits, Fortune 500 corporations, international brands, colleges and universities, tech startups, and the publishing industry, including small to large size publishers, hybrid presses, debut authors, and industry thought leaders. Marissa holds a Bachelor's of Arts in Communications with a minor in Business Management from Marist College and resides outside of Philadelphia with her husband and fur family. Oh, fur families are the best. Marissa, thank you for being here. I'm going to hand it over to you.
Thank you so much for having me, Stephanie. I actually literally just kicked one of the fur babies out of the room because the next door neighbor's kids are barking and she's like gonna go crazy. So I had to bump her out of here, but I'm so excited to be here. Thank you so much for having me. And to you and Chella and the Nonfiction Authors Association for putting this amazing event together overall. I know you've already got the virtual thing down pat pretty good here, but it's never an easy feat to pull all of these details together. So I give you all so much credit for putting on such an amazing multi-day event.
Aw, thank you for that. It's my pleasure. I have so much fun doing this.
Awesome. Well, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here to get us started. Alrighty, everybody can see we're good to go?
Looking good.
Perfect. Well, again, as Stephanie mentioned, I'm here to talk about branding for authors today and really preparing your platform for media and reader engagement. Let me just go to the next one here. Is it working? There we go. So as Stephanie already said, my name is Marissa Eigenbrood, my Senior Vice President here at Smith Publicity. We are a book publicity and marketing agency that works with authors, experts, and publishers and thought leaders on really amplifying their voices, primarily through traditional media platforms. I've been with Smith Publicity for 12 years, so most of my career. A lot of those entities that Stephanie mentioned, I've had the opportunity to work with through Smith Publicity. And in that time, I've been a publicist and part of our business development team and in my leadership positions now. And throughout all of that, most of my work has actually been with nonfiction authors. So we do work with fiction and nonfiction at Smith, but I have really specialized in the nonfiction space quite a bit throughout my work. What I love the most about working with nonfiction authors is, at the early moments of our conversations, those first introductory, those first discovery calls that we have together, one of the first things we start talking about is goals. And what do we really hope to achieve through this book that you've either just published or you're planning to publish sometime in the near future? Those goals are really what sets the stage for building out so many aspects of your author brand and of all of the pieces of strategy and planning that will go into publicity and marketing well beyond that. For many of those that we talk with, book sales, are not the number one goal, shockingly. Book sales are always important. They're always, a critical piece of the puzzle, of course, but just the success of the book by itself for a nonfiction author, in our experience, is really not always the number one area that they're really emphasizing. We hear so often that those goals are around speaking more frequently, or maybe they're wanting to consult with new business opportunities. They really want the book to be a catalyst or a springboard for launching a series of retreats or workshops, or maybe groups that are dedicated to an audience that's really part of their overall platform. And truly, those types of goals are the ones that we love to work with at Smith, because there are so many layers that can be built out in that strategy to support those goals. And ultimately, when you're thinking about the book, kind of the goals beyond just the pages of the book, that's where you get the chance to draw readers and audience members in, to show them more about yourself, and to actually then spark the book sales. If you're just kind of connecting with one person in a one-off situation, and they see the book and they say, this is a nice book, I'm going to go buy it. Well, there's one sale for you potentially, maybe a few word of mouth sales after that. But if you get the chance to do a speaking engagement, to extend it into some kind of bigger presentation, to open it up into a group or a workshop, that's where you might see those bulk sale opportunities and really start to see those sales tick up. So when the book sales are not the number one goal, we often, that's where we really then get to dive in and say, what are those other pieces that we want to pull in here that are actually going to lead to those book sales later on? And the most important piece of all of that is having your author brand ready and established for that attention that you're going to be driving in through those other efforts. So, why is it a question? First things first, we have here on the slide, why does establishing your author brand matter? If my TED talk that I just gave right there didn't give you enough reason to develop an author brand, we're definitely going to dive in even more so right now. Today's readers are rarely interested in simply just a new book that's coming out. We hear, oh, there's this really great book called Dare to Lead. Sounds like a great book. Very curious to learn more about it. What people are going to be excited about that book, but what they're going to be more excited about is the fact that that book is from Brené Brown. That is really where your audiences and today's readers are engaging. They're looking for, who is the person behind the book? What can I really dig into? And how can I, connect with and trust and admire this person, and then read more about them in their book or through their other marketing channels that they have established. From a publicity perspective too, the media is also looking for that author brand. They're looking at, okay, this book is really interesting, this author is really interesting, but how are they going to help amplify the coverage that we're coordinating on their behalf? How are they going to take the article I've published about their book or the podcast interview we've done together? And how are they going to go ahead and amplify that? And that author brand, that author platform is one of those is really that key piece to doing so. A lot of the things I'm going to talk about today are going to sound like you have to establish your author brand months or years ahead of your book launch. And, just yesterday, I went through 8 Ask a Pro sessions. Hi, Megan. I think there's a few others out there too. But we went through some really great Ask a Pro sessions yesterday. And I talked to authors who are at all different stages of their book launch process. And what I always want to emphasize is it's never too late to build out your author brand and your author platform online. There's always an opportunity to keep bringing people into your project, especially if you have, a book that really has an evergreen nature to it. There's an opportunity to continue engaging with these audiences and building that audience, well after the book is released. So it's never too late. But certainly if you are in the advanced stages of getting your book out to the world, this is a really great time to get started with those efforts. Your author brand is going to play a really critical role in many points of your book lifeline. So this is where I'm going to talk a little bit more about some of those pre-publication, important elements of having that author brand established. first and foremost, that first piece of it is going to be the agents and publishers. They today are looking for that author brand, that author platform, because that's an automatic group, network, kind of established presence that is going to help sell books. So while your goal as an author, your number one goal may not be to sell books, it's very likely that your agent or publisher's number one goal is probably going to be to sell books. And they're going to be looking for, what brand do you bring to the table? What audiences, what following do you have? You're going to be able to bring in and already start to get some of those book sales going. That means that there's already that invested group right there, and they just get to keep building on top of it. I already mentioned before, but again, media is going to be looking at that for a number of reasons. I mentioned here in the slide that legitimacy and really kind of having that easily identified platform, that easily identified brand, that's what the media is going to be looking for. They want to say, I'm going to consider covering this. There's some buzz going on around this book. It's a really interesting project, an interesting author, but why them? Why should I focus on you? Why should I focus on covering this particular content? And many times what you're communicating through your author brand can help solidify your credibility and your legitimacy for writing in this topic.
Marissa, sorry to interrupt. Should we be seeing different slides? It's stuck on, why is your author brand so important? Are you switching slides?
It's still here. We're still here.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I thought you were referring to something else. Okay.
No, we're all good. Thank you. And then again, the third piece there is going to be your reader. Your reader is going to be looking for ways to further engage, learn more, dig in deeper, and your author brand is going to be how they're going to go ahead and engage with you beyond the pages of your book. Before I jump into the next portion here that I want to talk about, I've got this little exercise here for everyone just to kind of marinate on as we continue ahead. Envision your favorite brand. Think about it. It could be a book, it could kind of book related, it could be non-book related. What are the colors, the fonts, the imagery that's used? What feelings do they evoke for you? Is there comfort involved? Is there trust involved? That is the same thing you want to ask about the brand that you want to develop around yourself. You want to create those same feelings with the audiences that you're connecting with. And that's why it's so important to kind of think about it from that perspective and then apply it back to yourself. So I encourage you to take these questions and marinate on them, as you move ahead with your thoughts on your author brand. So when we're talking about the three groups that I mentioned, again, the agents and publishers, the media, the reader, when they're looking at the author brand, it's not just the flashy, kind of details on your website or a robust social media following, huge numbers that they're looking for. There's really two key elements that they're going to be looking for in our experience, and those are authenticity and consistency. So when we're thinking about the authenticity point, and I promise I have a little bit more on this slide and then we'll move to the next one. But when we're talking about the authenticity point, that to me, even though these two pieces are so important, that to me and those that we work with, that is number one. Because when you're building your author brand and your presence of your author brand, you want to be true to yourself. That's something my mom always told me as I was growing up was, Marissa, no matter what you face in the world, be true to yourself and trust your gut in that moment. And I want all of you to really be true to yourself and how you're building out your author brand. It's very easy to fall into all of these bells and whistles, these expectations, these trends of what it means to build out your author brand. But it's really important that you take that step back and say, does this feel authentic to me and the messages that I want to convey through myself and through my book? The ways that you can kind of identify that is giving certain things a try. So different elements of your author brand are going to be, part of your online platform, might be your website, certain social media platforms, other marketing initiatives like a newsletter, a podcast, a blog. Try different things out and see what feels authentic to you. If you're starting to write a blog, but you're really finding it's hard to stay consistent with it, to stay active with it, it feels like that thing you can never cross off your list and you're constantly pushing it back and procrastinating on it all the time, then blogging is probably not the right piece of the author brand platform for you to build out. Maybe for you, it's actually moving over to YouTube and creating videos and being kind of authentic through that channel instead. So again, really thinking about where am I feeling that authenticity? And then, as I mentioned, consistency is the next piece of that. When you find those elements that feel the most authentic for you to be sharing your voice through, that's where you then can ensure that you're able to stay consistent with it. Because the goal is to really build trust with your readers and your audience. You want to build that trust that they say, I know if I go to Stephanie's, social media platforms or to her blog, that I'm going to see certain content at certain times consistently every week. And that's going to keep them engaged with you and keep them coming back for more. I think a great example of this would be, let's say you wrote a book on the history of comic books. It might sound like, who's going to want to see, even more content about that? Does it really have that big of a reach there? But maybe you're going to start an Instagram account where you get to share a lot of great imagery, a lot of great visuals around comic books. And then every Monday you have Marvel Monday, where you talk about a different Marvel, comic book, or Flashback Friday, where you talk about vintage comic books. Those are the types of things that, again, you can create that editorial calendar and that consistency to what you're doing over time in a way that feels authentic. So then, in creating all of this authenticity and this consistency and everything, you want to probably say to yourself, well, there's tons of people who are in the self-help space, in the, in the memoir space that I'm in the business publishing space. How am I different? What's going to really set me apart from others? And, what I think is really critical to think about is the brand threads that run through your author brand. There's this belief in Chinese mythology that talks about the red thread of fate. And it talks about that two people are connected by this red thread. They're destined to be lovers, no matter the circumstances, time, or place. That thread conversation has actually moved its way over into the branding world. And a lot of really big branding agencies will talk about the thread that connects yourself to your customer. And what's the thread of Coca-Cola? What's the thread of, a big grocery store? What's the thread of Campbell soup? Those are all things that, that are a big part of the branding world overall right now. In my experience working with authors, I actually find that there's three main threads that really need to run through all that your platform and your brand is developed on. The first key thread to that is going to be your USPs, your unique selling propositions. So when you're thinking about what your unique selling propositions are as an author, that's where you want to think about, what value do I bring? How will I serve my readers through my content? What am I bringing to the table as an author and as an expert here? So this is where you really get to step outside of the author box and think about, who am I beyond being an author? Your USPs might be, as we see here, your credentials. Maybe you're an entrepreneur. Maybe you do certain volunteer activism work, or maybe you have a really unique personal, emotional, or motivational story that will connect to other people. This is your opportunity to say, I'm more than just an author. Here's what else I bring to the table that you can connect with. We worked with an author about 2 years ago. His name is John Livesey, and he is an expert in storytelling for selling. It can be selling products. It can be selling yourself. And one of his key, kind of unique selling propositions is actually kind of his tagline, where he referred to himself as the pitch whisperer. It was the pitch that you're sending, the pitch that you're using to sell. So think about, in your byline for something, in your bio for, on your website, in your social media platforms, instead of it just saying author of X book, maybe it says author, activist, teacher. Maybe it says author, entrepreneur, speaker. Think about what your other unique offerings are that you get to bring to the audience that you're engaging with, and make sure those are really prominently displayed, because you're an author in this moment in time, but those other entities are what are going to keep things going well beyond the book. The next two threads we're going to talk about are, the first is your target audience and your brand voice as part of that target audience. So the first thread being your USPs, the second that I mentioned being where we're focused on here. We like to say at Smith, if your book is for everyone, your book is for no one. In today's incredibly competitive publishing world, it's so hard to make your book and yourself applicable to every single person that's out there. So what's so critical is really taking that time to think about who the ideal reader is for your book, who the ideal audience is for your platform and for your brand. This is where you're really going to get the chance to start to lay out what your brand looks like, because your target audience is going to give you a lot of direction in terms of where you're going to go with a lot of your initiatives. When you're outside the authenticity that you're establishing, through that brand, you're also going to think about where your target audience lives. So if you are a business author and, you say, okay, I feel that, Instagram is really easy for me to use. Well, LinkedIn is actually probably going to be where your target audience lives. So if you haven't given that one a try, definitely move over to that space and focus your attention there. Your target audience should be, a primary group initially, but then really start to think about who are some of your secondary, and kind of sub-target audiences too. Beginning with that initial target audience is going to be a lot easier to get engaged with and to get them, kind of bring them into your world, into your sphere, into your network. And then you get the chance to keep opening it up and building it out from there with other audiences. But start where it's going to be easiest, where you already have that initial connection, where your content is going to be most relevant to those individuals. From there, your brand voice comes very naturally as part of that, in saying, how do I speak to these individuals? So if your target audience is teenagers who are, kind of going through the college admissions process, let's say, that voice is going to be probably really different in how you're going to speak to them, the words you're going to use, how you're going to relate to that audience, versus if your book is about, financial planning and you're speaking to accountants. That is, thinking about your target audience, and then how you're shaping your content, what you're writing, what you're posting, what you're sharing to connect back to them is really, really critical. Brand voice is actually more so tied into target audience as that second thread. The third is going to go back to the goals. What are you hoping to achieve here, and what brand elements do you need to have in place to support those goals? If your main goal is to take your book and evolve that into speaking, then it's important to to ensure that you have the right speaking information available on your website, that again, you're mentioning the speaker pieces throughout your social media platforms, and that you're also maybe sharing the speaking engagements that you're doing through other channels, like a newsletter or a podcast or something along those lines. So again, what are the goals you have in mind here? And beyond just the success of the book, and then what pieces, extensions of your author brand need to exist to connect to those particular goals. So these elements, and again, your writing style, your genre of choice, they're all going to help dictate, again, your brand choice, your brand voice. And again, you're going to come up with certain familiar words and phrases you'll use most of the time, but they're all going to be connected back to that target audience in the end there. One thing I always advise too in all of this is, it sounds like, wow, this is a lot of work. How do I get started with all of this? You don't need to reinvent the wheel. I always recommend starting off by checking out some of your competitors. Check out some of others who are, who have succeeded in your genre, those that you look up to as authors and experts, and see what they're doing, see what's worked well for them. And, don't be afraid to maybe recycle some of the things that you see are engaging and working well for them. Now we're going to jump into some really key elements of your brand. I'm not going to talk all about website development and each individual page of your website. I'm not going to talk about the nitty gritty of social media posting today. What I want to really talk about are the core things that should be consistent through your brand on all of these elements. The first piece is going to be colors. It may sound really simple, and in the whole world of the written word, we've got black and white on all of our interior pages most of the time in our books. We don't often think about our colors, but from your cover to your website to all of those pieces, having consistent colors is really important to your brand identity and really establishing your brand equity. Think about establishing one main color and then possibly two complementary colors. Think about how those colors kind of come together. I'm gonna call out someone who I know is on the meeting here, Megan, today. We had a really great one-on-one yesterday, and she was sharing with me some really great elements about her author brand. She has this wonderful imagery she uses of sunrises. She lives in Sedona. So we were talking about the colors of her author brand and having that extended to her website. And, initially we talked about some initial colors she was thinking about, and then ended up talking about the oranges and the pinks and the yellows and all those hues that really connect with the world that she lives in and what's also already featured prominently on her Instagram page, and how that then can carry over into her website. So I think those are important things to think about too. If you're already really prominent, maybe on a certain social media platform, and you see certain colors that are consistent through that, think about that as inspiration for the colors you might use over in your website. Fonts are the next piece. You don't get to play around with the fonts as much on the social media side of things, but when it comes to your website, your newsletter, other things you might be sending out as part of your author brand, really think about how your fonts are going to connect back to your author brand too. And also how those fonts may play on the colors that you have on your page too, making sure that they really blend well together. So if you're writing a business book, you might go for more of a Calibri or a Cambria or a Times New Roman, where if you're writing a book on anxiety or kind of a self-help book, maybe you're going with a little bit more of a flowy type of font that feels calming and feels relaxing. Imagery and logo are really important too. A logo doesn't just have to be, even if you don't have a business entity, you don't have to have a logo of a business entity connected to you. It can just be the way that your name is featured and how that's highlighted on the elements of your brand. It could also just be a certain image that's consistent and used regularly. If I say the Mockingjay image, what do we all think about? The Hunger Games and how that was prominently featured throughout. So, think about some of those images that you can keep consistent and utilize throughout your different platforms. And again, I say consistent once again, I feel like a broken record, but you'll hear that really often, is because you want people to be able to identify your brand and come back to it and know, okay, I'm here, I'm connecting, with this particular individual. I'm sharing here a quick overview of one of our clients we worked with last year. His name's Doug Conant. And this is, I think, a really beautiful example of brand consistency. You can just see from the font that's used, there's a lot of capital letters that are used throughout and different things. There's this, kind of blue, and it connects to the blueprint, the title of his book. But the blue is this prominent color featured throughout, where the red and the green tones are complementary in different ways. But this is, I think, a really great example of brand consistency on some of those elements that I mentioned there. So let's just talk about the website really quickly, because that is such a key element. The website is the one-stop shop. It is the home base for you and your author brand. A lot of authors will ask me, do I need to have a website? I'm only planning on writing one book. Do I need to have a website? And there are so many inexpensive options to developing websites today. My answer is always yes, because the website is the place where you get to add everything in one spot for people to learn about you, your book, your brand, and all of the offerings you have around it. That's where you get to have, sign up for my workshop, sign up for my newsletter, sign up, for subscribe to my podcast, learn more about, my blog. This is where you get to put everything together, all of your media coverage that you get. You can have your social media links. Having all of that really clear and visible there is incredibly important. So again, this is a great place to make sure that your colors, your fonts, your imagery are all really clear. Your points of connection of saying, I got the book already, or I've heard them through the media. How do I connect next? And that's where you want to keep those prominent options for connection really clear there. And then think about the content, that consistent content that's carrying through everything, and how you're expanding your voice beyond the pages of the book. I do recommend too, as you're moving through the colors and fonts, do some test samples. Don't build up the entire website and say, oh, wow, that's not working. But, try it out in a few different spaces, try out some different versions of things, and see how different colors and fonts play off of each other as you're working your way through that. Again, just as important as all of these visual elements are how people can stay connected to you. I always recommend having your social media links up in maybe the top right-hand corner of your website. Make sure they're really prominently, kind of visualized there. When you're thinking about if you have a newsletter, think about there's a sign-up bar, maybe in kind of the top portion, the top half of the website, right when you get to it on the main page, and carried through into your other pages as well. Same with your buying links for your book. Make sure they're carried through each of your pages of your website. Make it as easy as possible. That's always the key to it. As easy as possible for people to connect with you, to buy your book, to stay engaged. And I think another piece of that too is don't hesitate to maybe consider some incentives where you can keep someone engaged with you. Maybe you're giving them a free chapter if they sign up for something, or they get a discount code or access to a certain Facebook group you have to be part of, when they're signing up for staying connected with you. So I'm just going to share a few quick examples here. A past client of ours, Marissa Grant, we worked with. Again, really great brand consistency here. I thought she was a really great example of just up here in this corner of her website, that her name is that kind of logo, that imagery there. So it's not necessarily that it has to be this brand logo, but that it's how your name might be prominently featured. A few other examples here. The one on the left-hand side of the screen is a project called Undercurrents from Steve Davis. Just really great visuals. And this one in particular, I love that little line in the back there because the book's called Undercurrents. You can see that it ties into the cover of the photo, the cover of the book there as well, with that line consistency. Same with the coloring, really consistent, really clear, really crisp. I use Julian Browse over here on the right-hand side as a regular example on a really great website. This particular section is about his book, but if you ever want to go to julianbrowse.com, it's a really beautiful, well-done website. And even you can see there just his name, Julian, how that pops out as his little kind of consistent logo piece there. But coloring, fonts, all really strong in that particular example. Two last ones here. Again, names used as prominent logos. I love for Kendra Hall on the top there. Her primary focus is keynote speaking, and she puts that right at the top there. Lets everyone know what she's about, what you're here with, and has that prompt to book Kendra up in the top right-hand corner. Janelle Diane here does a beautiful job of featuring her media coverage. And so that's always something to think about too, is as you're moving into publicity, how is your media coverage being featured on your website? So you've got that website established. Piece number one, they'll sync up the social media with that website, making sure that, again, those brands, those brand colors, that imagery is all carrying over into those platforms. Instagram in particular, if you have a really photo-rich visual aesthetic to your brand, that's a really great place to spend your time. I highly recommend the resource Canva, if you're not familiar with it already, for great social media graphics and content. Other piece that's not mentioned here, but to think about is your brand hashtags. I always recommend developing one particular hashtag for yourself, it could be your book title, it could be yourself, it could be kind of one of those USPs that you have, but create your own one primary hashtag that's going to apply no matter what you're talking about, what you're sharing moving forward. And then you might create some secondary hashtags that connect to an event you're doing or a giveaway, that you can utilize for certain initiatives and endeavors. But having that one primary hashtag that's going to start building conversation around you and your brand is really important for social media. A couple examples here, I think, just show really beautiful brand consistency through social media. I've even got a copy of Everyday Legacy here right next to me, our one author, Cody Schuin. So I love with Cody, you can see right at the top of his Facebook page, that beautiful cover photo, colors, fonts, all really consistent there, including his website, including his hashtag. And then as you move into his bio there, you see speaker, author, entrepreneur, and even his postings are so consistent with that coloring. Another couple of great examples, just showing all of the different platforms, because the other one had Twitter and Facebook. So we've got Instagram and LinkedIn here. For the one on the right-hand side, Lorna, she's edited her description for her professional profile on LinkedIn to include author of It's Personal, the business case for caring. Great place to update and include your book there. Laura Gassner-Otting has a really fantastic bio section here. She's got her link tree included in there. And she has, that great kind of rundown of her USPs within her bio. So, I've talked a lot about author brand and these marketing initiatives, and we're publicists here at Smith. We don't develop websites at Smith. We don't run social media accounts at Smith, but I can't emphasize how critical an author brand is to publicity and to media. I often say that publicity is the last domino to fall before the Rube Goldberg sets off after it. All these dominoes line up along the way, and publicity is the last one that happens. Usually publicity happens around the launch of the book. You want to make sure all those other dominoes are lined up and ready to go before the publicity one really shoots off, that you have your Sunday best on when you're going out there to the media. If more people are following you and engaging with you, then the media is going to look at this and say, this person's got something to say. There's someone worth noting. There's someone that, we should pay attention to. There's even some media, some podcasts that are going to look at a certain social media following or a certain presence in order to even consider you to be, included on their show. So this author brand is so important to the world of media and to publicity today. And again, it, as we say at the end here, great publicity not only promotes the book, but it promotes your brand. And that's what truly can take you to that next level of attention and opportunity. As Stephanie mentioned, there's a couple of handouts that I've included here, some website tips, Facebook 101, LinkedIn 101, some other resources to think about. I mentioned Canva's really great for social media graphics. We're big fans of Aweber for newsletters. Medium is really great for SEO if you want to take your blogging kind of outside of your website. And Listen Notes is often really great for some podcast searching if you want to start to look into some podcasts where you can start sharing your author voice. And we've got some good resources here from the Smith side of things too. So questions.
Hi, Marissa, thank you so much. We do have some questions coming in for you.
Great.
Let's go ahead and get started on that. I love this question from Tina. I have a professional photo that's beautifully aligned with my brand, but the photo is 10 years old. How often do you recommend a new photo?
Ooh, well, Tina, we talk a lot about authenticity in our conversation, and I think that's really important. So I love that it's a beautiful photo. Maybe there's an opportunity to share it, within like your author bio page on your website, where you can use it as like a timeline photo to say kind of through your accomplishments you've had in life. Here's some photos, through that, and maybe sharing an older photo. But I would encourage an updated photo, especially if you're going out there for new initiatives now. If you're working on a new project now, let's refresh it. Maybe even what you're wearing might change to tie in with colors. That's the thing in terms of author brand we didn't really dig too far into today, but your author photo may also have the colors of your brand included in it. So that's where you might get a chance to wear, a great blazer, a great blouse that connects over to your platform colors.
There's a lot of lifestyle photos happening. I've been noticing with the influencers online, you'll see in their websites, there's pictures of them drinking coffee or sitting with their dog on their lap, or, so you might do something like that and put that into your branding.
Yeah.
That's not my style personally, but I can see how others like to do that.
And listen, Tina, I don't blame you for wanting to hold on to that headshot. The one at the beginning of my presentation was from 5 years ago, and I'm holding on to it for dear life. So I totally understand that. But yeah, it's great to get that updated. And I love your point there too, Stephanie, of diversity to those photos. If you're going to invest in a photo shoot, think about the kind of different photos you can take. If you don't have your book done yet, but you do have your cover, think about printing out the cover, wrapping it around another book, and taking some photos with your book as well. Do it in some different settings. Let your book have its own photo shoot, like really maximize that session if you're going to do it, but make sure it goes a little bit beyond headshots so you've got great collateral to use in all the different platforms we talked about.
And you'll find there's photographers who actually specialize in doing business branding photos. So
Yeah.
Want to get you live at your desk or sitting on your couch or sitting in whatever. So there's lots of options there. But I think we can all relate to that one. Once you get a good photo, you don't really want to replace it. Marissa, Jerry says, I don't understand how hashtags are helpful. What do I do to energize them? How do they work?
Sure. So, it's important to create your own hashtag, but that's where it can be kind of hard to get things moving ahead, kind of get the ball rolling with the attention to your own hashtag. That's where it's really important to use other hashtags too that are prominent right now, that are garnering attention, that are trending, and looping your hashtag in with those. So, some big ones on Instagram might be, authors of Instagram is kind of a big one that's used really regularly. And you might include that in most of your postings that have to do with yourself as an author, yourself as a book. But also don't hesitate to use ones that don't have anything to do with being an author or about a book. It could be hashtag self-help if you're a self-help author, or hashtag anxiety if you're talking about anxiety. By kind of driving people to your platform through those hashtags that are more regularly used, then your network, your followers are going to start using your hashtags and how they're sharing news about you and your book and bringing people into it too. So you just want to have that little piece of something that can carry along and can connect people back to you. But I think with hashtags, it's really more important in the beginning to utilize those that are already trending. And you'll find those. You can simply go into Instagram or Facebook and do hashtag and start typing out something that relates to your book. And you'll see all of a sudden, these, like how many posts there might be. It can say 1.9 million posts about anxiety. I'm sure there's way more than that on Instagram, but those are some great ways to find the ones you might want to use.
Yeah, and that's such a good point too. I like to think of social media sites as search engines. They're like mini search engines, and your hashtags help you get found in searches.
Yeah. And again, go to those competitors, go to those people you're looking at and see, what are they using? What hashtags are they using and that are trending? So great place to start.
And now along the social media discussion, Chris says there seems to be markedly less engagement on LinkedIn ever since they deep-sixed visibility of the groups. Also, there seems to be less engagement on Facebook and Twitter over the last year or so. Are they on their way out? Where's everyone going?
I think that it goes back to target audience, and where is your target audience getting their information from and spending your time there. I only advise being on Twitter if you are, either in politics, in sports, or planning to be extremely active in your social media activity. Twitter, you will not be successful on Twitter if you're just posting. You have to actually be part of conversations, commenting, sharing, being engaged there. Otherwise, there's no reason for people to want to start connecting with you just to see what you have to say there. So I think Twitter's a really persnickety platform. It's really appropriate for only a limited group. I would say for, I do like Facebook because it does give you a lot of opportunity for a lot of targeted ads at a really inexpensive price. And you can really, again, kind of zero in on where your ad is going for a certain target audience there too. So that's why I do like Facebook. It may not necessarily have the highest engagement rates, but you do get some really good opportunities to do some targeted, inexpensive advertising there. For LinkedIn, we are actually seeing some really great success, or not necessarily in just book sales, but in new business opportunities. When, again, it comes down to hashtags, to article sharing. I think with LinkedIn, that thought leadership sharing is really important, where you're not just sharing what you know, but you're sharing what others are saying, you're sharing articles, you're kind of staying ahead of your industry and the conversations that are going on within it. So I think each one is just rapidly changing in different directions. And, thinking about how you're really tailoring your approach to the right one is the way to go. It's not you don't need to do all of them.
Well said. You don't need to do them all. Kathy says, if you have a business, is it a good idea to mix your book and personal brand with your business brand, or keep them separate? Wouldn't that depend on if the business is related to the book?
Yes, exactly what I was going to say there. It's really going to be dependent upon if there is a thread kind of that connects through them there. You want to make sure there is consistency there for sure. If you're, if you have a leadership consulting firm and you're writing a book about dieting, I'm going to say probably want to create a separate entity over here, because that's going to be probably a very different audience that you're focusing on, and different social media platforms you're going to want to create about that. But if there are some consistencies between that, then absolutely. I highly encourage, if you already have eyes on this one place, let's bring even more into it.
Great. If an author's new memoir is inconsistent with current brand and platform, how would you solve this? Should new assets be developed, or how can you leverage your current platform?
Again, I think it's probably going to be about what's the current platform based in. What does it look like, all kind of initially, and there's with the platform you already have, there's likely to be some individuals in there who are going to be interested in your new endeavor, in your new project. So maybe the website isn't necessarily the right kind of place. That might be a separate website, but for social media, if you've already got a presence there and you find that the same target audience, or this different target audience also, it kind of exists on this platform. Let's say it's Instagram, and you've got this like health and wellness platform that's really been established, but you're going to go and release a book on pet care, let's say instead. That health and wellness piece, there's probably a little tiny natural piece that you can kind of start to pull out and pepper in where appropriate to start bringing attention to the other project, and kind of see how people respond to it. If there's any kind of negative feedback on it, if you're seeing engagement drop, if you're losing followers, then that might be a sign that you need to go elsewhere and start to create a separate entity and separate platform for the new endeavor you're working on.
Yeah, Marissa, you're right on. I think it's really common that we all have multiple interests, and maybe even writing in multiple genres, or our business is different from our books. I dealt with this. I used to be a small business expert. I wrote small business books.
Mm-hmm.
And then I had so many people ask me about publishing that I accidentally found this other lane that I liked even more. But what I found is I let people know, hey, I'm moving lanes. You can come with me or
Mm-hmm.
not. And that worked out great, because some did come with me. But yeah, I would say if you can invite people to follow you along to your new brand, but don't expect them all to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, if you're starting to feel that pushback, if you, like I said, pepper some things there and you're feeling that pushback, then like put the invites out there. Do kind of build out a marketing rollout plan where you're going to start talking about it to that group. Not too much if they're not interested, but start pulling them over into those new platforms.
Well, this is one of those topics that we could probably do another 2 hours of Q&A on. I wish we could do everything, but I'm sorry, we can't. Marissa, remind us again of what Smith Publicity offers and how we can connect with Smith.
Yes, absolutely. So, as I mentioned earlier, we are a book publicity and marketing agency. Our primary meat and potatoes of what we do, our full service, offerings are in the publicity world. So, we are building out tailored publicity campaigns focused on traditional media, print, broadcast, online media, podcasts, and influencers, building attention and buzz for authors, their books, their brands, leading up to and beyond the launch of their book. We do also offer marketing consultation in earlier stages too, if that's something that someone wants to dig into. I mentioned we don't do website and social media execution, but we can talk about, some tweaks to your platform or how you're incorporating your book into your existing platform as you get ready for launch. So yeah, that's us at Smith in a nutshell. We've been around for a long time, and we're excited to just keep connecting with new authors and as we move ahead.
Fantastic. And Smith Publicity has a great reputation. So Marissa, thank you so much. We really appreciate all of your insights. Thank you to all of our attendees. We're going to log off and hop back in at the top of the hour. We do have a website designer as our final speaker of the day. So for those of you asking about website design, Nicole Krug is our next speaker, and we'll see you all over on the next session. Thanks again, Marissa. We appreciate you. Bye-bye.
Feel free to reach out by email, or we've got some other great resources on the Smith page, blog, newsletter, podcast, all good stuff there.
Awesome.
Thank you.